My fears can't go into this next season of my life. They can't go into this next chapter in my business. And they darn sure can't go into Q4 with me because I got some sugar honey iced tea to get done, okay? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wall Red CEO podcast. I'm your host, Shanice, and today we are kicking off bringing in Q4 with all of the motivation, refuel, and pumpkin spice lattes you need to help you close out the year with a bang, okay? I don't know who this episode is for, but I feel it in my spirit that someone needs this word and encouragement to just be bold these last 3 months of the year, right? So that idea, that plan, that goal that you put on the back burner a while ago, let's bring it back up to the forefront and go all in, okay? So I always say that there are two types of people in this season of the year. You have the first subset of folks that are really pumped up, they're self-motivated, empowered to kind of put in that last bit of work to really close out the year and wrap up their goals, right? And then you have that second subset of folks that are kind of wallowing in self pity and self doubt because they feel like they haven't accomplished enough in the year, you know? But whichever subset of like these two people that you or these two groups that you fall into, today's episode is really going to address a common theme between both, and it's surrounding fears and overcoming them, right? So the TLDR for today's episode is my fears can't go. Simple as that, right? My fears can't go into this next season of my life. They can't go into this next chapter in my business. And they darn sure can't go into Q4 with me because I got some sugar honey iced tea to get done, okay? So today's episode is really going to cover 4 tips that I used and still use to this day to help me overcome fears. But before we dive too deep into these recommendations and these tips that I've come up with, I want you to understand and realize that fears ebb and flow, right? They come and go. You're never going to get to a point where you have absolutely no fears, no doubts, no worries, right? But what you can overcome, what you can control is how quickly you respond to them, right? I want you to kind of have that mindset shift and kind of look at those situations and those encounters in that light because it's like the old saying or old adage goes like, uh, every new level comes with a new devil or the same devil, right? And it's nothing to be too hung up on, but just understand that that's a true testament to your growth and your evolution and your process, right? Like it's going to come with that elevation, and that's okay, right? So now that we've kind of put that disclaimer out there, we've kind of helped with the first mindset shift. Let's go into the first tip that I've kind of come to terms with on this journey of kind of overcoming my fears a lot quicker. And that is you have to get into the routine and conscious habit of replacing every negative thought with a positive thought, right? Right out the gate. As soon as you recognize yourself falling prey and falling victim to those negative ideologies, replace it immediately. And I put this one first on the list because it all starts with your mindset, right? If your mindset is off, like everything you do after that is going to be off. No matter how much work, how many hours, how much sweat, blood and tears you put into it, it's going to be off every single time. And it's because you fundamentally missed a step, and that's your mindset. Okay? So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is take it back to the basics. Understand the big picture. Take a step back and really get to the root of why you're committed to this work. Why is it so important to you? Right? So one of the things that I implement heavily is vision boarding, right? And not just your cliche vision boarding that everyone promotes at the beginning of the year. No, I do vision boarding every quarter, right? Because my ideas, the person that, I am throughout the year changes with each season. And that's to be expected with your personal development, your personal growth. You're supposed to learn and grow throughout the year. Allow your vision and your line of sight should increase as you go throughout the year, right? So you have to kind of put in those stops and those points to where you can adjust the vision as needed. Okay, so don't be afraid to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture when you kind of are faced with those fears and like, man, I really want to give up right now. I really want to give in right now. It's okay. Tip number 3 really came from Queen Bee herself, and it's surrounding this idea of giving yourself space for grace, right? Giving yourself space to wallow in, the fact that, what, this fear may be beating your right now, right? It may be beating you up, and that's okay. Take a second, acknowledge, that it's affecting you. You don't have to be a superhero and put your cape on immediately and get straight to work, eradicating it. It's okay to acknowledge that life is beating you up, you know? But I like to say, wallow in it for a day, no more than a day, and move on, right? So that may look like a Saturday or Sunday just spent in bed binge watching Netflix, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Allow yourself that time to decompress and acknowledge your feelings, okay? It's okay to hit that reset button for just a minute and not be all work, 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 right? So the last tip here, tip number 4 is to go where you see yourself once you've quote unquote made it, if possible. Once you reach that goal, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Is it like a newer house or a new zip code, a bigger house, a better car? Like, what does that look like for you? If you have to go drive around the neighborhood that you eventually see yourself in, or go to the dealership and either sit in that car that you want or take it for a test drive if they'll let you. But you have to kind of get into this habit of putting yourself in those situations, because once you physically do that, it sends like this neural connection to your mind. It's like, hey, this is actually possible for me, right? This is actually a part of our norm. This is not out of sight or out of reach for us. This is very much so doable and it's possible, right? And we have everything we need to be capable and make it happen, right? So I do that a lot of times. I also heard it a lot, like in some other mentorships that I've done, as well as proximity. Proximity is so important because your environment really controls a lot of your success and the trajectory that you have to like getting to that end goal, right? You have to allow yourself to move out of this comfort zone and really expand your mind, expand your horizons to what's possible and what's available to you, right? If you just kind of stay in this little pond, you would never even know that you can survive in an ocean, right? So that's kind of the last tip there that I always kind of remind myself when I'm really facing those fears, and especially those self-doubts surrounding imposter syndrome, right? Surrounding the idea that I don't belong, or I I didn't have the same, background or situations or circumstances or opportunities coming up, right? Like, no, I still have right now today to kind of flip the script and make it everything that I want it to be and everything that I need it to be, right? So that's it. Those are my 4 quick and easy tips for how to quickly overcome a fear and put it in its place before it has any opportunity, any chance, any leverage over your life and your plans, right? So I want you to put that in your repertoire, add it to your bank for this Q4, right? These next 3 months, and really go all in. Give it the best, give it all that you got, right? Long story short, and I've mentioned this, if you are a true OG listener of the podcast, we brought this up, and I believe it was episode 2. I'm going to drop it down in the description for anyone that needs to kind of have that reminder themselves, or anyone that kind of wants to brush up on it and put that motivation in their repertoire as well for Q4, is fear is the biggest liar, right? Nothing about your qualities, your qualifications, your talents, your abilities is ever going to lie to you like that. Nothing but fear. Fear says you can't do it. Fear strikes you out before you even step to the plate, right? Give yourself that opportunity, that chance to fail. Because failing is not always a bad thing, right? Failure also brings an opportunity to learn and grow and pivot the next time you get started. So that's actually the second mindset shift here, right? Allow your brain to see failure, allow yourself to see failure as an opportunity for growth rather than some kind of point that you've actually missed the mark, right? So that's all for today's episode. I will see you all in the very next one. And remember, Q4 is where champions are made. You got this. I'll see you in the next one.